You're listening to the Pasco Podcast with Mike Carballa. Welcome to Season 3 of Pasco Podcast, a series about leadership and public service. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the nearly 600,000 people of Pasco County, as represented by the Board of County Commissioners. It's through their trust and empowerment of our workforce and leadership team that we're able to bring you this podcast. This podcast is designed to help public servants build leadership skills and leverage them for success by sharing the experiences of our peers.
Hi, I'm Mike Carballa, and welcome to our 33rd episode of Pasco Podcast. Can you imagine what your life would be like without being able to get clean water from your tap, cool off in a pool, or spend the day on a lake or a river? It's National Water Quality Month, and today we're shining a spotlight on those who work to protect this precious resource, ensuring our water is safe and clean. So please join me in welcoming two dedicated utilities team members, Director David Allen and Water Operations Supervisor Jim Kaplan. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, glad to have you. It's always exciting being part of the water quality community myself personally and professionally. It's always good to, remind folks how important it is to have clean water. So why don't we just start just by telling us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to work here at Pasco County. Jim, we'll start with you because I know how David got here.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I started my career in the city of Dade City in the early 90s. I obtained my certification, my basic water treatment plant certification there, which opened up a lot of doors for me here at the county. So I eventually applied and got in with Pasco County Water Operations, and 28 plus years later, I'm still here pushing
here he
water.
Is, and helping and Mr. Know-It-All utility engineering directors when they first come here, showing them the ropes. So you're always good. David?
So yeah, I had a little bit more of a longer path to get here to Pasco. I started my career out in Southern California in water and electric utility, municipal utility. After I met my wife and we had kids, we decided to move back to Colorado where I grew up and raise our kids there. And then now that my kids are grown, my wife really wanted to get back to the ocean and closer to the coast. And so we decided that we would give Florida a try. And so last year we moved out here to Florida and started with Pasco.
Yeah, and you've done a phenomenal job, David. And folks may not know, and when we originally hired David, I was the assistant county administrator at the time and brought David on and literally, hey, day one onto the job. By the way, you're on your own. I'm moving to a different to a different job, and so you've really taken the bull by the horns here and have done a phenomenal job with the utilities department. But you both obviously have had long and storied careers as water quality professionals. I think it'd be good for our audience to kind of understand, hey, what's so significant about Water Quality Awareness Month, and why should we care about water quality?
Right.
Well, I can say in my viewpoint, water conservation and water quality tend to run hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And with the great influx of people moving into the state of Florida, we need to be very careful on how we manage this resource, because if we don't manage it properly, we could run short of that supply. And eventually, we may even have to look for more alternate water sources, including desalinization plants.
Yeah, we've got a lot of water. It's cheap water, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
David, I mean, golly, coming from the west side, I know that water supply issues on the west coast are paramount. But talk to us a little bit about your experience and why we should be advocates for quality and conservation.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about water when you just kind of take a look at it from a literally global perspective, we have like over 70% of the planet is covered with water. Mm-hmm. And of that, I think it's like over 96% is in the oceans and is salt water. So that doesn't leave very much water for the rest of us. And I think that the amount of fresh water on the planet is less than 1% of that total. Mm-hmm. And so when you start thinking about it from that perspective, it's not only important for us in terms of water quality from a consumption standpoint, which we provide that service, but I think also, as you mentioned in your introduction, for leisure, we have the coasts. We've been having red tide issues more frequently, which then prevents people from being able to recreate in water bodies. Lakes and rivers are getting more and more algae issues, which again prevents folks from enjoying those. And then just looking at our region as a whole, with the reliance on the coast, we have a whole economy that's based on people coming in, spending money, and it's supported by the water. So water is really critical for just about everything that we do when you
right.
look at it.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about that, right? It's critical for life, and then our economy and our leisure. It's across the board. What would we do without it? We take it for granted. Got a bunch of it right here in this cup right here, and it's certainly a resource that we got to take care of it. Fantastic. Talk to us a little bit about what Pasco County Utilities is doing to raise awareness about water quality.
So one of the key things that we do is we have a strong outreach and communication program. And a lot of that, quite frankly, is really around our conservation efforts, just because of the limited resource. But I think that as you start looking at other areas beyond just utilities as a whole, county as a whole, we have a whole nother department of public works that manages our stormwater. They're just very conscious and aware that we need to watch, what we discharge out on the ground and things like that, because those all can potentially pollute our waterways and things like that. And so we have just various types of outreach programs, various kind of communication flyers that we send out in our bill, and then also just direct contact with our customers.
Fair enough. Jim, anything you'd like to add?
We've had a population explosion here, so it's a hard task to try to educate our citizens and our customers on anything up and coming with our water system. And we're an active member of the Florida section, Florida section of the American Water Works Association. And we're a member of the 6-member governments with Tampa Bay Water. And we get a lot of educational tools from them that we try to utilize to educate ourselves and our customers. And we also use the county website. We post any rule changes that are coming from federal and state agencies. And one that comes to mind is the lead and copper rule revision, where utilities have to identify all service line connections in any residential and commercial service line. So, and we'll post that and let our customers know how we're complying with that rule.
Gotcha. You guys don't we issue every year kind of a state of the water quality within the results of the testing and things that you guys do?
Yes.
Okay, so that goes out to the customers.
Consumer confidence report.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very good. Talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, Jim, what do your guys do when it comes to testing and ensuring water quality within the distribution system? So talking about that tap, kind of thing, because people often, it's hit or miss, right? I drink in bottled water, or do I drink it out of the tap? I drink it out of the tap. Pasco's finest is, so talk to us a little bit about the safety that you guys provide.
And that's a very good point that you bring up. We are heavily regulated by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I believe more so than bottled water companies, who are the Food and Drug Administration. So we're always subject to stringent inspections, and they hold us to a very high standard to make sure our water is the best quality that we can make it. Our water quality technicians are out every day doing chlorine residual checks, flushing low flow dead end areas, and they continuously are pulling water quality samples for different constituents, and they take it to our environmental lab, and typically those are the results that we post on our consumer confidence report.
Gotcha.
So,
and our lab doesn't just test, that's open to all citizens, right? They could test their well water if they wanted to, and see those types of things. So you don't just have to be on the county system to, ensure you've got clean water. David, anything you want to add? Just kind of stuff that happens behind the scenes there, like what Jim was talking about?
Yeah. And the thing that Jim talked about, he mentioned the flushing program. That's a really huge program. And with the growth that we're having here in Pasco County, one of the challenges that we have is we oversize the pipelines to accommodate future growth and development. And that has a tendency to potentially degrade the water. And so what we do is we have a flushing program essentially to minimize the age of the water and really keep it fresh. And so, as Jim mentioned, we have a team of staff that are out continuously monitoring the system and identifying where to flush. In addition to that, we also have several locations where we've installed automatic flushers that will basically open up, discharge out of a fire hydrant on a timer. And it's interesting, again, because the public outreach piece is we get calls a lot from
why are you wasting water?
Why are you wasting water?
Right.
And really it's so that we can maintain our regulatory requirements and make sure the water is safe and healthy for us.
Yeah. And to your point, people don't realize necessarily that, those pipes are made bigger, right? So if there's bigger, they hold more water. And if there's less use on the pipe, water sits around, right?
Yep.
So it's a perishable product that you guys have to push through pipes all throughout this county. And I don't know if folks really, that understand that when you have to make them bigger, both to accommodate future growth to a certain degree, and that's a fine art because you can't necessarily make them too big. Make them too big, then it's a bigger problem. So there's a timing issue, but also even things like fire protection and things like that. And that, a lot of times those requirements are driving because you got to make sure you maintain adequate pressure. And so you guys have to balance all of that to ensure that those things work. I think one thing that gets very little press, and maybe if you guys want to talk about it, because, we want to use, David, 1%, right? Get back to 1% on the planet. We want to use the right quality of water to do the job. And so I'm talking reclaimed water. And I know, Jim, you're not necessarily over reclaim, but it falls under the utility side of the house. Talk to us a little bit about Pasco County's reclaimed water system and, its importance in this whole area, because I think it's something to be proud of, truthfully.
Oh, it's something really to be proud of, particularly in Florida where we get a lot of precipitation. And it's not one of those places that you would think that we have a very robust reclaimed water system. And so that's a system where we capture the wastewater that comes out of people's homes. We treat it not only for the standards that are required for treating wastewater, but then we have additional treatment so that then we could use that water for outdoor irrigation. And what that does is that helps to offset the need to develop drinking water supplies. So it really helps us stretch those supplies out much further than we normally would. One of the unique things about Pasco County and our utility system is that we don't discharge our wastewater to any water bodies. And so we effectively recycle 100% of our water. The majority of that water goes to our customers that we have on the reclaim system to irrigate their lawns and landscaping. And then we also have a very small percentage that we use for land application, which helps to recharge the aquifers and the groundwater levels regionally, which is one of the main sources of supply for Florida.
Yeah,
so,
namely that 4G Ranch project,
right,
where we're actually rehydrating. Not only are we rehydrating wetlands and things that are in the surficial, but a good portion of that water does make its way back into the Floridan, which is replenishing our water supplies. Something to be proud of in Pasco.
Right.
Absolutely leading the way. As I can tell you, there's plenty of other municipalities and counties that are not as far ahead as we are, and they're scrambling because the state laws are now kind of catching up on a lot of this, and putting a lot of those local governments and their constituents in a precarious position of having to raise revenues in order to deal with that. And so I think you guys do a fantastic job with the modest amount of fees that you charge for your services. So it's fantastic. Right. What can your everyday citizen do? Are there little things? If I was talking to a kindergarten class, or I was talking to, what little things can we do as just individuals to improve or ensure good water quality out there? Jim?
There's many things that come to mind. One is to improve water quality, we need to be very careful how we discharge any trash or debris in our area of Florida. The ground in Florida is very porous. And if people aren't responsible with discharging garbage and fertilizers and the such, it can easily end up down in the drinking water aquifer. There's a video out that was done by the USF, and they send divers down into the aquifer, into the Florida aquifer. It's called Water's Journey. Okay. And it's very good video if anybody was interested. And they actually have divers going under Pasco through the aquifer, and you'd be amazed at all the items they found that had made their way down into the Florida aquifer. Kidding. So it's very important not to throw debris down in grounds or big pits and grottos. You need to make sure you dispose of waste properly. And there's many other things you can do to improve water quality. If you are away from home, just locally, if you are away from home for any amount of time, it's good to, when you come back, to make sure you let your water run for a few minutes inside your house, to bring in good fresh water from our water mains to help get rid of any potential odors that you might get with stagnant water being in your home for many, many hours.
Yeah.
And it's been recommended that if you flush the water heater, the ones that have the tanks, of course, if you flush those annually, you can get rid of any particulate or anything that's collected in there, which sometimes can be a source of odors in your water.
Okay.
So there's a few things you can do locally and certainly.
Gotcha. So just like you guys, keep your house pipes flushed,
yes.
right? And be kind and don't litter, kind of thing.
Yeah.
David.
I'll just keep it simple. I think people, what they could do is just really think about what they put down the drains, what they flush, and then things that they throw outside, because all of those are pathways to our water supply, and just to be cognizant that has a potential impact further downstream, or could limit our water quality supplies.
Yeah. And, while we're not necessarily talking about wastewater, folks here in this podcast, what makes its way out there's only so much that you can effectively treat for.
Right.
And so, keeping things like that, I even look at, you look at talks even in California and stuff, finding Prozac, for example, trace elements in water supply and stuff like that. There's little things that can be done. Let's only put in the water if we have to.
Right.
Truthfully, our wastewater systems are really designed to treat for human contamination. And by that, I just mean what we naturally, handle. And that's really what it's based on. The rest of that stuff all becomes a challenge, but society just likes to just flush it, forget it, toss it down, whatever it might be. So
and it's very important to use Florida-friendly fertilizers if you're going to irrigate fertilize your yards or groves. It's important to use the right stuff so you don't impact the water.
Yeah, because you get those nutrients, right? The nitrogen and the phosphorus that we talk about algae blooms. We talk about a lot of these things that can make its way back into the environment. And we saw a lot of degradation to our to the north of us, in our springs. And fortunately, the legislature's acted in a way that's promoting that. We talk about septic to sewer conversions and things like that. So I think we're well on our way. It's going to take time, but I think right. I mean, that's really what it is. So in this podcast, we usually talk about leadership, and we try to come up with some leadership topics. Talk about utilities and leadership? What does that look like for each of you in your varying fields? David, I'll start with you.
So being the director of utilities, for me, I think leadership takes on a very broad definition, just because we have leaders, senior management in what we look for in terms of leadership from that standpoint, all the way down to the field staff and the people that are working. And we as leaders are always talking about developing and growing our staff. Yeah. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to really also highlight and help support and develop what I call the everyday leaders. So those are the folks that are out in the field every day who may not have the title of a leader, may not have the authority of the leader, but they have the ability to rally staff behind them and get them to move in a certain direction so that we have alignment and those types of things. And I think that that's really key for the success of what we do, because without that, we have so many people that are out in the field making important decisions every day. And we have to have leaders that are on site and available in order to respond to those. And so for me, I think it's really just about recognizing and helping to then develop those skills for those folks so that then they can advance and share and teach others to be able to do the same thing. Leadership is kind of just a unique kind of thing, because we put a tag on it, if you will, but it's not always something that's easily trainable. I think that there's certain folks that have that capacity and capability, and they're just natural in the sense, because I think that, if you have the authority, it's easy to direct and give instruction. I think it's a lot harder to get people to follow you and move in a direction where you want to go in without having to order or tell them where you're going. So
Gotcha.
That's a challenge.
Okay. Jim, having a lot of these field guys report up through you and to you. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Right. And from my position, I've seen a lot of, and I've worked with a lot of senior seasoned leaders who have the institutional knowledge and know the history of where we've been.
Yeah.
And then I've also seen a great number of new young leaders coming in the door who have fresh new ideas, and they're very eager to get their ideas put in place. So blending them together, it's a very interesting thing sometimes. We're done a very good job though of marrying the two theories of management, and we always move forward and do a great job. So I'm really happy to be part of that.
Oh, very good. Any leaders in this industry? Jim, you've been with the county, 28 years, right? Any
Yes.
leaders, either work for the county or not, or somewhere in that field, that may have influenced your leadership style, better or worse?
Well, one comes to mind. I was fortunate enough to work with a retired Navy commander, and he showed us a whole different way to manage folks. He made everybody feel important. He made everybody on the team feel like they were the quarterback. He cared about every person, even down to the utility worker out in the field trying to fix a water main.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated his viewpoint, and I always try to emulate my management style.
Yeah.
It was really good for me.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. That's wonderful. Yeah. Okay.
So with me, I think it's the similar, or I guess very similar. I've had some influences, both good and bad, in my history. I think one person that really stood out to me was very early in my career, where he really emphasized and kind of instilled with me the concept of team, because there are so many different roles and responsibilities that we have, and that we can't be experts at all of them.
Right.
And so we have to rely on people, and we have to trust them that they're going to be able to do their jobs. And so that was a very eye-opening experience for me, was just to see that and to understand and recognize that you can't be the expert of everything. And that's why you hire the experts, so that they can do their job and be the expert in those fields. On the other hand, I've had other leaders that probably were a little challenging to work for, but I think that even in those instances, there was still positives that I took away from that. And in this particular instance, I had a leader that was really a visionary. The challenge they had, though, was the implementation piece. So it was really difficult for them to kind of figure out the steps that we needed to get to that vision. And so it was kind of coming in. We got this fire drill. We got to figure out where we go. But then once we figured out where we went, the person wasn't there. And so I think that a good leader is there to help not only create the vision, but also to implement the vision and kind of take you on that journey to get there. And so that was the other piece that I took away from that leader.
Fantastic. So a lot of lessons here on people, right?
Yeah.
Taking care of people. And of course, setting that vision, but also, it's up to the leader too, to try to communicate that vision and help drive it to success. You can't just set it and forget it.
Right.
It does require watering, and nurturing,
Right.
and trying to move it along. Given the nature of your work, David, any unique leadership challenges that you've faced over the course of your career, and how did you get through those?
Yeah, I've had several
I believe it.
leadership challenges. I think for me, one of the probably most challenging things was really just understanding again that people are coming from a different place, and so when you're communicating, you're bringing everything, all your beliefs, values, and everything behind that communication, and you have this intent and expectation of what that looks like, and it doesn't always come across that way from the receiver standpoint.
Yeah.
And so that's, quite honestly, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is when you have those types of conversations and the person receiving the message is not getting the same message, right?
Yeah.
And so as a leader, you have to learn these, what I call tools and tricks of the trade to where you have to kind of get that out of people, because a lot of times folks will just kind of sit there and nod their head and say, yep, okay. And then they walk away going, what the heck just happened?
What was that?
What was they talking about? Right. So then, that's where things of follow up and just checking in on people and making sure that they're on the right track is very important. And so, just managing a big group, a large department, and keeping everybody on track with the mission is always a challenge. But I think that as long as we all understand what that is, then we can all work towards that.
Yeah, fantastic. Jim, any stories from the front here? I mean,
well, and working from what David says, we have a very diverse workforce now,
right.
And we, and it makes for a great workforce, because every day is very interesting listening to where people grew up and their ideas of how the workforce should be. But one of the struggles that we have is that we have a workforce that is getting ready to retire. Mm-hmm. And it's a challenge to be competitive in the workforce, to try to hire licensed certified operators. And a solution that we found is we started our own trainee apprenticeship program. And we bring in entry-level people and help them get certified and show them the path to get their school curriculums done, and walk them all the way through to get their water licenses. So it's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, I mean, this massive exodus, right? I mean, the water business, relatively speaking, in terms of water professionals, is relatively new, if you would. I mean, and a lot of the engineering and the things that really were developed in the, after World War II and pushing on through, the 50s and 60s, and the technology really, for treatment hasn't changed much. There's advances, don't get me wrong, membranes, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on there, but the basic premise hasn't changed much. Do you find is it getting harder to attract folks? Is it, to replace? Because like you say, a lot of those people are cycling out, and it's time. I mean, are we getting people in?
Yes. It's a very competitive market, and we have, our neighbors to the south of us they're big organizations too, and they're very hard to compete with, even though Pasco has come leaps and bounds to be able to compete with them. But it's still, it's a career path that people don't know about very much. So we've tried to go to job fairs, and we try to educate and publicize these positions, and to hire a regular licensed operator or wastewater operator has become very difficult. So we have been able to harvest our own people and bring up operators and train them how they best fit for our organization. So we recently had 6 trainees that have joined the program. Already 2 of them have passed their state exam and are already currently operators, and the other 4 are right there at their heels. They're very excited to get into this career path.
That's fantastic. Yeah. David, you're a PE by background too. So, there's the field and the operating crew, and then there's usually a team of engineers and professionals that are also on the other side. Any thoughts on that in terms of recruiting, getting folks involved into the career field from your perspective on that?
Right. And that's a challenge across the board, I think, in all utilities, not only in the operations and maintenance side, but also with the engineering and other aspects that we have, staff and utilities. And, we're trying different things. We're trying different things to try to entice people, reaching out to local universities. Again, like Jim said, doing job fairs and things like that, but we're still not getting enough. And I think that, it's going to be a challenge moving forward. And particularly because, much like Jim has competition from other agencies, our biggest competition, quite frankly, from an engineering recruitment standpoint, is the private sector. Yeah. And so, there's a lot of folks that really want to just come out, get a lot of money, work on money. But I think that one of the things that we offer is a stable work environment. And I think more importantly too, is we have a sense of ownership in terms of what we do. And so for me personally, that's why I've always kind of stayed with kind of the local government, if you will, and utility systems, is because it's really cool to design new stuff, but it's always about getting that next job. Whereas here, even after it's designed and it's accepted and we're running it, then it's really yours. And how do you continue to provide that service, not only for today, but then also for future generations to come?
Yeah. I think we're of a similar mindset when it comes to that. I worked in consulting prior to coming to Pasco County 9 years ago now. Wow, time flies. But it's the same thing. You work on a lot of really cool projects. Don't get me wrong. I've been to all over the world doing jobs, but there's a sense of ownership when you've got the entire site picture lined up for you, and you know that this is your system, not necessarily doing a project on that particular process of this particular plant, that you can make a very good living doing that. But again, getting that bigger picture and knowing that you're really fulfilling something special in terms of that mission of serving our community to create a better future. It is absolutely falls right in line with what you guys do every day. Former county administrator used to say when he would come and visit utilities, you remember what I'm talking about, right? He'd say, clean water and sanitation have saved more lives than anything. And he was right. He's absolutely right. I mean, you think about it as an underpinning for modern society, how we cannot move on without clean water and sanitation. It's a basic, it's a given in this country. Yet there are many parts of this world where that's clean water is a struggle. And so, we're grateful to have professionals like you guys doing that and leading the pack on this. Just one final question for you, I guess, is just, we always talk about sharpening the saw and improving ourselves. How do you guys improve both your technical and your leadership qualities?
Well, I try to stay current with any new management styles that I read about, and I always try to take the best of all the leaders that I work with, and I try to copy their style because it's it always seems successful. With my team, I try to use the SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, to try to make sure we're doing everything the best way we can and not get complacent with how we're doing it. This is how we've always done it type deal. So it's the only way we can remain competitive.
Okay. Fantastic. David.
I think for me, it's really about two things really is being open-minded and being flexible. And so being in a leadership position, leadership role, I think that there's different approaches and tactics to whatever the situation is. And I don't think that there is a necessarily one size fits all kind of approach, because every situation that you're going to be faced with is a little bit different. And so, there's ways to stay current with different types of articles, things like that. Also different seminars and things like that. And I think that as you go through those, if you could pick up one or two things and call it yourself, get a nugget, your own, get a nugget here and there. And then after you've done a lot, all of a sudden you have your own nuggets, and then it becomes your own style. And so I think for me, it's really about that and just really meeting people where they are. And listening to people, and hearing them out more so than anything, because you get so much information just by listening to people and hearing what their perspectives are, hearing what their interests are, hearing the things that they want to work on. And it gives you so many ideas and different things that you can help them grow and help them develop.
I know. I wish there were just enough time in the day to be able to take all those good ideas that you hear and really put those things into practice. Well, that's the end of the formal question, guys. I've got a few quick lightning round questions here, maybe a little bit of fun. I don't know. We'll find out. But just tell me what's right off the top of your head here. So, favorite holiday, Jim?
Favorite holiday would be Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. I like it. David, same question.
Halloween.
Yes. Really?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Candy. I need to come by the candy.
That's
All right.
I'm still a kid at heart.
Okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Candy corn.
Down.
Oh my gosh. I'm on an island. Love candy corn. David, one place you'd like to visit that you haven't?
That I haven't. Oh gosh, I'd say Italy.
Italy. Fantastic. Jim.
Paris.
Paris. I've been to both, guys. You'd love them. Get out there. I don't know where I'd like to go. Maybe Japan. I don't think I've been there.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to Japan. Well, that wasn't on my list.
Yeah, but it wasn't on your list. It's on mine.
If you go to Japan, make sure you climb Mount Fuji. I've done it. It wasn't fun.
Did you do it on a bet, Jim?
Yeah.
No, you were just young and reckless, right?
Yes, of course.
All right. Summer or winter?
Summer.
All right.
In Florida.
Here in summer in Florida too.
Yes,
Not summer up in Canada. Okay.
No.
All right. Morning person or night owl?
I'm a morning person.
Night.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. All right. Salty or sweet?
Salty.
And first job, David.
First job. Paperboy.
Paperboy.
Yeah.
I love it.
That was my first job.
Did you have a route with the bike and everything?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Yep. And we had to collect back in those days. They didn't have automatic billing. You had to go back around and knock on people's doors and ask for their payment.
Did you ever get stiffed?
Oh, yeah. And you had to cut off. Then you stopped delivering their paper, right?
Nice.
So the harder part, though, quite frankly, was the money management piece, because when you're 13, 14 years old and you have a pocket full of money, it was like, okay, I'm going to go to the ice cream store.
Exactly.
And then you got your bill for the papers at the month, and it was like, ooh, I wasn't planning on getting the bill. I just thought I'd get to keep all the money.
I got to keep all the money. Oh,
Right.
I got to pay for these papers.
I gotta pay for these
That's
papers.
how that works. Good
Yep.
model.
Yep.
Jim, first job.
Well, so out of high school, I worked in a commercial print shop, and I was a
Printing papers for David, maybe?
Yeah, no, we were printing everything from Long Island bus schedules to educational stuff. And I was a journeyman bindery operator. And during that time, which is sort of funny, I bought myself a small little backhoe digger, and I ended up digging graves to make my payments. So I'm probably one of the few people I can say that I was a grave digger.
Oh my. Well, I'm not following up any questions after that one there. We'll just put this one to rest. All right. Well, hey, Jim and David, thank you both for being here today. It was great to have you. And a special thanks to our media relations team who makes this effort possible. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Pasco Podcast. I'm Mike Carballa, and we'll see you next time.
For more information on Pasco County government, please visit mypasco.net and check us out on Facebook and Twitter.